Good evening, everyone. Our angels spend much of their time sleeping. In their dreams, they tear down the new houses by the sea and build old ones in their place. No matter how long they may sleep, 100, 200 years, 10 centuries is not too much. The first to wake up takes the torch that has been handed down, adds a drop of oil to the lamp, blesses the eternal light, and then recalls the name of every other angel. And one by one, as they are remembered, they wake up. For them, as for us, there is nothing more beautiful than memory. I'm Rabbi Schicker, and it is an honor to have you all here at Temple B'nai Israel this evening as we remember our loved one, Janet Heller. Janet was loved, admired, and influential. Born on July 8, 1949, to Bill and Joan Heller in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, she was an impactful teacher and community member. In everything Janet did, she brought the force of her belief and commitment to building a better world. Whether she was teaching Hebrew, literature, creative writing, women's studies, linguistics, or composition, whether she was volunteering, unionizing, or giving back through board service to organizations like the Ladies' Library here in Kalamazoo. She was a published author and poet, most especially proud of her children's book, How the Moon Regained Her Shape. She died on October 12th, leaving a legacy that will live in all the memories of her loved ones. She is survived by her husband, Michael, her siblings, Will, Nancy, Paul, Diane, Nancy, Joan, and Roger, and Peggy, as well as Dale, as well as so many nieces and nephews and great nieces and nephews. I believe it's 51, 52 at this count, with more on the way. And she could tell you about each and every one of them and what they were doing. So I invite you to join me in your programs in reciting Psalm 23 in Janet's memory. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Music was an important part of Janet's life. We welcome forward Lowell Krischer, Michael's brother and Janet's brother-in-law, and Mariana Levine, a member of our congregation, to share a piece in her memory. was privileged to be gifted a few of Janet's books and wanted to share one of her newer published poems from the Woman of Reformed Judaism's collection, Covenant Justice. This is her poem, A Woman Prophet. We need a woman prophet, her long hair streaming in the wind, to come to our congregations and denounce those who worship themselves, not God. We need a woman prophet, her strong arms bearing a torch, to come to our city and provide homes and jobs to give our lives dignity. We need a woman prophet, her voice full of zeal, to come to our country and stop us from judging people by their race or creed. We need a woman prophet, her eyes full of tears, to heal targets of abuse from all their wounds and punish tormentors. We need a woman prophet, her mind luminous, to bring peace and harmony to a world ripped apart by conflict and violence. We will now hear from 6 different people about the impact of Janet's life on theirs and so many of her loved ones, many of in this room, and I want to acknowledge the many people who are live streaming from all over as well. And we welcome her husband, Michael, to share his memories first.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think hopefully you can hear me. If not, let me know. Yes, good. Thank you in the back row. Okay. Obviously, I want to thank all of the people that are coming tonight. Many of you, friends, associates in all sorts of organizations. But I even want to thank more the people that I do not know, just because you're here. Obviously, Janet meant something to you, and yet, our paths didn't cross, and I hope I'll be able to talk to at least some of you afterwards. And I've kind of gotten used to people saying, oh, I'm sorry about your loss. I expect that from the people I know, but people I don't know saying that, again, it means something because Janet meant something to you, and somehow they picked me out even though my last name is different. Okay, you can also I don't want to talk too long here, you can see that we're almost 2 months past her death, and I've obviously had some time to think over those 2 months what my life will be like, and I can say in some ways how I miss Janet, and maybe the least important is the things she used to do, because I can learn a little more about laundry and a few things like that, and I will go on. Another thing I miss, and there may be less of a remedy for that, is when I did something that she appreciated, even coming up with this program or getting everything on the right pages and the pictures nicely, and I think what she would have thought of that had she been able to see it. And then there's just the everyday things, whether it's the moon shadows at, in the middle of the night out our back window on the snow, which, is quite beautiful, or, coming back from a restaurant on Stadium Drive, an Indian restaurant cutting through the Winchell neighborhood, and having to jam on the brakes. My food went, flying on the car floor, and having to tell Janet when I got home, well, I had to brake hard because there was a deer crossing Winchell out, obviously not looking where it was going, and then she'd want to know what was in what I had ordered from the Indian restaurant, and I'd probably have to get out the menu to figure it out. But that's the kind of person she was. She wanted to know what was going on and was interested in all sorts of things, even though obviously, for many years, Indian food did not, with its spice levels, did not agree with her. So, and as I think more, there's many times a day when I would have liked to have said this to her, or she would have found this interesting, and obviously those are the memories. So I think that's what I'd like to leave you with. Those are the memories. Thank you very much. Okay,
We're next going to hear from one of Janet's brothers. Paul.
You can tell me, but I think I need to lift this up. Janet Ruth Heller, the oldest of 5 siblings. I am Paul Heller, and I bat cleanup. 4th among the 5 siblings. Yes, everyone had their quirks, and Janet was no different. However, alongside those quirks was a very accomplished sister with fabulous attributes, including, first, a road warrior that fought for people's rights and welfare, including women's rights, rape victims' welfare, and adjunct professors' rights. Second, a brilliant literary scholar with the ability to write and publish across 4 broad areas: children's books, poetry, literary criticism, and poetry. Quite often, you only focus on 1 or 2 areas. A constant cheerleader for friends, colleagues, and family members. She strived to applaud you for your achievements to boost your confidence and show her appreciation. 4th, a loving and sensational aunt and great aunt. 5th, a dedicated and scholarly Jew with a beautiful voice to chant Torah. 6th, an admired mentor and teacher, spanning ages from youth to college to fellow colleagues. 7, an incredible memory and mind up into her last breath. 8, an exceptional leader for and initiator of existing organizations and those she as a group or individually founded. And lastly, broad life interests, including culture, the outdoors, and nature, and a sports fan. And in this audience, I'm afraid to say she was a die-hard Green Bay Packer fan. Now it's time to embellish these wonderful attributes. Janet was extremely involved in 2 literary organizations, the Michigan College English Association. David Settle also is going to be speaking and is an executive in the group and worked alongside Janet for over 20 years. The second is a Society for the Study of Midwestern Literature, which spans at least 12 states. They had their annual conference this last year in May in East Lansing. Janet attended, and it was the last trip outside Portage except for some medical visits. I'm going to quote the conference chair, Jeff Hotz, from an email I received from him. His words illustrate both Janet's literary brilliance, but also her big heart to be a cheerleader, boosting people's confidence. I quote Jeff, "Janet is truly a wonderful person, a highly accomplished poet, and a talented scholar. This past year, she organized and moderated an excellent poetry session with 2 accomplished poets. As the moderator, Janet was so positive and enthusiastic about their poetry. It was my favorite session in the conference. The panel was filled with energy. Janet was beaming and extremely generous in her praise of her colleagues. Third, a road warrior for numerous important causes who never settled for the path of least resistance. Months before Janet died, I spoke separately with Jeff and David regarding her involvement with these 2 literary organizations. They both praised Janet, but as importantly and notably, both used the word frank to positively describe Janet's tenacity in standing up for her beliefs and what she was always trying to accomplish. I am a huge singer-songwriter fan and know the songwriter Tia Sellers, who wrote the Grammy-winning award song, I Hope You'll Dance, that was made famous by Leanne Womack. So next time you're trying to decide to put your name on the line for an important cause, think of Janet and think of Tia's lines, never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. I hope you'll dance. Fourth, political hands-on advocacy. Janet walked the talk. While in college, she took a bus to march in Washington for the women's ERA movement, Equal Rights Amendment. Michael just told me while we were talking yesterday that she lost every piece of clothing as her luggage was lost. Janet both physically and figuratively marched for her convictions. Fifth, truly an amazing aunt and great aunt. I want to address this from both sides of the family. From the Heller perspective, I quote Janet's other brother, Will. He's my older brother. Janet was a great sister to her siblings, a super aunt to all of her nieces, nephews, and great-nieces and nephews. She never missed an opportunity on visits to give them her favorite books. She wrote many poems about each of them at different stages of life, which are incredible keepsakes. From the Krischer perspective, Janet was equally a superstar aunt, quoting Linda Morris, Michael's sister. Janet had a huge impact on our side of the family, playing hide and seek with the little ones longer than any parent could endure. I can see her hiding behind the rickety old closet doors in my mom's house, fooling the kids upward of 40 years ago now. And she'd sit with each and every one of them and take an interest in their lives, always finding time to talk and listen. Let me tell you, it didn't go unnoticed by the kids. They are all so strong and have a huge bond with their Aunt Janet. And personally, I spent hours FaceTiming and Zooming with Michael and Janet. And some of the best memories are nursery rhymes, If You're Happy and You Know It. And we would just rotate, coming up with different lines with the kids and Janet. And then Janet just loved watching her great nieces and nephew. And Papa Paul would do art projects, and there were times that I would just sit my phone up and she would watch for over a half hour, and I know she loved every minute of it. Sixth, a dedicated and scholarly Jew. Janet was a truly devoted and scholarly Jew who again walked the talk. She chanted Torah portions routinely on high holidays. She volunteered constantly at her temple and held positions including the president of the sisterhood, principal of the Sunday school, and an ongoing Sunday school teacher, as well as other countless roles. Janet tutored those getting their bar and bas mitzvah for numerous months weekly. According to Maimonides' Ladder of Tzedakah, the highest level of giving is to give anonymously. I worked closely with Janet during her last 2 months of her life to research and coordinate her plan to give generously to a multitude of causes that were important to her. In every case, she wanted to give anonymously, passing down the opportunity to have a multitude of programs, walls, events bearing her name. Seventh, enormous initiative behind starting organizations to benefit others. In interest of time, I will only quickly identify the main four. First, an original founder for the Rape Crisis Center in Madison, Wisconsin, while she was getting her master's degree. Second, she spearheaded an adjunct professor union for better health care and better job security at Western Michigan University. She succeeded. Her approach became a blueprint followed by other Michigan universities. Unfortunately, this effort cost her her job as the administration retaliated and she lost her adjunct professor position. Third, her initiatives with others as an undergraduate resulted in a new Jewish studies program at Oberlin College. And lastly, at the University of Chicago, where she did her graduate work, she pioneered and founded Primavera, a women's literary magazine that lasted for decades. Lastly, Janet's positivity during her last few months. Many of us have had an opportunity to visit Janet in Portage or have long phone conversations during her last few months. Janet knew her days were numbered, and she was rather uncomfortable many times. Despite this, she was so positive. Janet wanted you to enjoy your time with her. She downplayed her condition and discomfort. I never once heard her complain, and there was a lot to complain about. She succeeded in taking all the love and admiration from those visiting Portage and those calling and emailing her. I truly admire how she approached her end of life. And I'm going to go off script just quickly, because at Janet's funeral, Michael said a really profound thing that will always live with me. Janet was scared of things. She was scared of dogs. She was scared of her hands not being clean. She was scared of many things. But in facing life, she was not scared of her oncoming death. She was so courageous. In closing, Janet Ruth Heller was always a champion and warrior to help and care for others. As a daughter, as a wife, as a sibling, a cousin, an aunt, and great aunt. As a devout Jew, as an educator and mentor, as a volunteer, as a cheerleader, forming organizations to benefit others, taking countless leadership roles and doing the real work. Janet Ruth Heller, I am so proud of the life you lived. I and we will sorely miss you.
We invite Michelle Zukowski-Serlin, a longtime friend of Janet's and fellow Jewish community member, to share some words.
Janet Heller was my friend since 1988, and through the years became a part of our family. Through Passover Seders, long walks in the neighborhood since we both lived in Amberley, and I lived there for 15 years. Lake parties at my house, synagogue, temple, sisterhood, and long conversations. Janet was a constant in my life. Janet's goals in life were to perform Tikkun Olam, repairing the world, through her poetry, books, and mentoring relationships with women and girls. Janet did not have children biologically, so her children were her nieces and nephews, and local children she would reach out to mentor. One of those children was my daughter, Julia. When Julia's father at the time passed away from cancer, Janet gave Julia a 2006 children's book she wrote, How the Moon Regained Its Shape. She came over and read this book to Julia, and they had discussion about bullying. Janet opened up to Julia about her bullying as a young child, and Julia promised Janet she would never bully. Janet was there for Julia and attended so many things in her life. Janet was especially happy that Julia chose to be a student at Albion College because Janet had taught writing classes there. Teaching was yet another way that Janet influenced youth and helped in her mission to shape strong women and men. Janet was also there for other people experiencing cancer. We volunteered with her for carnivals for Austin Melger, a young boy in the neighborhood who died of cancer at 7. Janet also visited my Ellen Cohn and brought food over the week before he passed away from cancer. Janet cared and reached out to others. We took numerous walks on the Celery Flats Trail often with other people and many from the synagogue and temple, including Betty Hirschfield. We solved the world's problems during those walks and advocated for women's issues. Janet sent her message for change through her books on bullying and poetry. Janet and I had a particularly deep conversation before I married Troy. She talked about Mike and how he was always supporting her. He believed in her as a wife, teacher, and writer. She felt that Troy would be those things for me, and she was talking about how unique it is to have a man like Mike that was so supportive of her. Fast forward to July 3rd this year. I woke up to go to the bathroom at about 2:40 in the morning, and I was on Facebook. Suddenly a message came from Janet. Just said, I'm going to die. I thought, okay, that's weird. Everyone dies. Before I could respond, the 3 dots were going, so I saw she was writing a lot more. Then she went on to say that yesterday she had found out that her 4-stage cancer only gave her 6 months to live and only 3 months more if she took chemo. But she didn't want the pain and sickness of chemo. Her decision was that she was going to face it head on and have the best life that she could have in that time. She made her decision. No chemo. This was Janet displaying great, great courage as she was facing her cancer. As we all know, Janet marches to her own drummer. She is who she is unapologetically. She was dying the way she lives, on her own terms. I was sad for her, but I admired her chutzpah, her strength, and her decision. And the way that she just said, I'm doing this, and that's how it is. I asked what I could do. She said, I'm coming to your lake party on the 12th. I want a boat ride on the lake. This might be my last time, so it's really important that I get this. This boat ride happened with us, Representative Jim Hadsma, his wife Lori, Marlon Violet Fisher, and I don't remember who else was on the boat. Janet knew that this may be her last time seeing a lake or riding on a pontoon. She was like a child. The first time they saw a flower or something for their first time, she was re-experiencing everything and taking in everything. She was holding on to the colors, the scents, the smells, the relationships of the swans, geese, and ducks. It was really sad, but it was so heartwarming because she knew this probably was her last time on a lake. She is forever embedded in our Campbell Lake. This was Troy's and my most memorable boat ride. We also had lots of conversations about life and death on that boat ride, and man, we were solving the political climate, because it ain't so good right now. This was one of the last experiences outside her home and the last one on a lake. Regardless of how sick Janet was, she made sure to wish Troy and I a happy vow renewal, which we invited her to on September 6th. Janet lived and died making a difference through her poetry, books, teaching, mentoring, chutzpah, standing up for what she believes in, and sending her message against bullying and raising strong women. Janet's work for the world will go on. Goodbye, my friend. I do love you. Your work for others has made your memory go on. And does anyone really need to say that your memory is really a true blessing?
We will hear next from Molly Riccia. Did I say that right? Recchia, I'm so sorry.
Hi. It's an honor to be here today, talking about Janet with you all. In 2005, I was writing children's stories and feeling very solitary in that endeavor. I saw a notice in the Portage District Library newsletter that a local writer named Janet Heller, who was that, was going to give a presentation involving children's literature. And I decided to go and see who this person was and what it was all about. I had no clue how lucky I was that I was about to meet a person who would end up becoming a treasured friend. I don't remember exactly what she spoke about to the 8 or 10 people there, but I do remember her manner. This was a person who made eye contact with kids and didn't talk down to them. A person who spoke clearly and confidently at a measured pace and focused on her listeners. A person who shared her experiences in a teacherly way, not to talk about herself, but to allow others to benefit and learn. Above all, this was clearly a talented, kind, smart, and helpful person. And after the talk, I took courage in hand and asked if she knew about any writers' groups I might be able to join. The last thing I expected was her prompt reply, just like that she knew a few people and we'd get one going. So, okay, here we are. Yeah. Trademark Janet. Always ready to give someone a hand, and in this case, a perfect stranger. Over the next several years, the writing group met more or less monthly, usually at members' homes. I learned a tremendous amount from her, and not just about writing. We talk about all kinds of things in writers' groups. And by the way, I still have a copy of her comma rules somewhere. Yeah, it's Janet's comma rules. I never had the nerve to tell her that I felt there might possibly be some room for difference of opinion on those commas, yeah. I'm sure that would bring a smile to her face, and I wish she had been here to proof this. Some members of the group came and went, and eventually I got too busy to attend meetings, but we stayed in touch, and we used to chat when our paths crossed on neighborhood walks. She always asked me about my kids and kept up with their activities on Facebook, more than I did. Mike asked me to comment on Janet as a writer and critic. The qualities that stand out to me in her writing are the same that stood out in her personality. She expressed herself with clarity, purpose, and strength. She wrote compelling stories that could ease the way for others. Stories that dealt with difficult social realities, but included a dose of optimism and wonder. I'm thinking especially about How the Moon Regained Her Shape and Passover Surprise. One of them deals with bullying, the other deals with disappointment and conflict. Janet also published a lot of poetry and other writings, which I'm less familiar with. Her critiques were invaluable. She was not the kind of person who would give you a pat on the back and say, "Oh, great story, nice work," and be done. She would always provide positive, encouraging feedback, but I would give back my drafts with plenty of comments and marks. She repeatedly revised my punctuation, and the phrase, comma rule number 4, just popped into my mind as I was writing this. She pointed out discrepancies in points of view. She identified words that seemed out of place. More importantly, she probed the why of plot and character development. One of her typical phrases was that she wanted to know more. I've heard some of the others say some of these same things. She wanted to know more about a given situation or reference. And I mention these specifics about writing because these qualities reflect her larger personality and her values. Clarity and self-expression, the beauty and rightness of being as grounded as she was personal consistency, integrity in words and actions, and always wanting to know more and understand more. And all of this with compassion and also humor. She had a great laugh. You know, she could laugh while speaking, which is something I hadn't seen in other people. Janet gave a tremendous amount to others through her friendship and her writing, and we're so fortunate that so much of that is on paper in stories that will be long remembered, and will keep that gift going.
We invite David Settle, who worked with Janet for many years as members of the Michigan College English Association.
Good evening, family, friends, virtually, beloved board members. I served on the board of the Michigan College English Association with Janet for 20 years. As president of the MCEA, Janet welcomed me to my first conference when I was a graduate student at Grand Valley State. She invited me to attend the board meeting after the conference, and we enjoyed working together, planning and organizing some excellent conferences together since then. Janet was a great leader, mentor, and friend. Her organizational skills were excellent, and her contributions to our team were immense. She did the work nobody else wanted to do and never complained. Ed Demerly, who served on the board with Janet for some 40 years, said, quote, "Janet has always been very encouraging and complimentary of participants and their presentations. She seemed to remember specific presentations even years later. At one pre-Zoom conference, she noticed only one or two attendees at a particular session, so she subtly encouraged others to join that session to support the presenters. Her contributions have been immeasurable since the 1980s. Nancy Owen Nelson, who also has been on the MCA board for decades, wrote, "I doubt if I've ever met a more dedicated person than Janet. I've been a part of MCA off and on since the 1980s. Janet was always a presence, both as a writer, speaker, and leader. I appreciate and respect her dedication to the arts, her teaching, and the organization. Thank you, Janet." Janet's generosity was selfless. A number of years back, we were fortunate to have Bonnie Jo Campbell, an excellent writer from the Kalamazoo area, speak at our conference. I was the treasurer of the MCA at the time, and I knew we were getting a bargain on the guest speaker fee. Bonnie Jo didn't charge us her normal fee. But last year, when we were thinking about inviting her to speak again, Janet disclosed what the actual cost was to have her at the last conference. It was a lot more than I paid. Janet covered the rest. Janet was an outstanding literary scholar and writer as well, as has been noted. I plan to cover one of her pieces at next year's MCEA conference, and here's a quick preview. And this is from her essay titled Dad's War Years as a Map Maker for General Patton, which she revised in 2021. Quoting from the first paragraph. "My late father, William C. Heller Jr., was majoring in management engineering at Carnegie Institute of Technology when he decided to enroll in ROTC. He learned military strategy, maneuvers, and the process for pitching a tent. In September of 1942, he and other ROT students volunteered to serve in the Army Corps of Engineers during World War II. However, they were not called up until the spring of '43 when he was about to graduate from Carnegie Tech. In 2001, Dad told me that he volunteered because Americans, quote, strongly favored this war and had, quote, a clear idea of what they were fighting against, unquote. I've got a strong connection with this piece and a strong connection with Janet in this area because my grandfather served with Patton in 1944 in his Third Army during the latter part of the Battle of the Bulge. On page 4 of the essay, Janet expresses her admiration and respect for Dad. Quote, "When I went on a 5-day canoe trip with Dad and my brother Will in 1961, Dad proved expert at pitching tents and surprised us by swearing, something he normally never did. He explained that living in a tent reminded him of his years in the armed services," unquote. The concluding paragraph of the essay shows her love for Dad as well. Shaped by, quoting from the essay, shaped by his father's values and his own Army experiences, Dad was never afraid to stand up for what he thought was right. He often told me, "When I faced a crisis, keep your cool, but fight like hell. I'm proud to be the daughter of an old soldier," unquote. Janet lived that advice. She was loving, cool, and respectful, but she could fight like hell, if needed. One administrator at a conference site got aggressive with Janet on some trite details, and she put that person in their place swiftly. If Janet didn't like an idea that the board put forward, she voiced her opinion with conviction. She certainly wasn't an advocate of the groupthink and let's all get along philosophy. But she always expressed her objections with grace and was willing to support the team decisions we made even when she disagreed. I don't remember Janet talking about her religion or spirituality within our group, but it was apparent she was a devout Jew. We could never schedule our fall conference during a Jewish holy day. Janet has inspired me to learn more about that aspect of her life. Names are meaningful in our Jewish tradition. Janet is translated as God is gracious or gift from God. Ruth is translated as compassionate friend. And my name, David, is translated as beloved. Although I've known Janet Ruth and served with her for many years, I never made the connection between our two names from a historical and spiritual perspective. Ruth was the great-grandmother of King David. As a fellow Jewish scholar, Janet has energized my focus on the literature within the Hebrew Bible, and the book of Ruth will be my next project. After rereading the wonderful short story of Ruth last week, the main theme that stood out to me is love. Ruth is a love story, plain and simple. Ruth's future husband, Boaz, called her a virtuous woman. My friend Ruth was a virtuous woman as well. Although the grave separates us in some ways, her love and her legacy will live within me and all of us as our beloved Janet Ruth Heller, a gift from God and compassionate friend.
We conclude our speakers with Marjorie Bullock, a cousin of Janet's, who will be sharing one of Janet's poems.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Marge Bullock, but my mother's name was Heller, and that is our connection. My grandfather was the brother of Janet's grandfather. So it's many, many years and many occasions where we have been connected and enjoyed each other's company. I respected Janet as the scholar that she always was. She was very, very kind to me on many occasions, and I'm feeling her loss. I think that one of Janet's poems that reflected her deep feelings was about losing her father. As sad as that was, she managed to put down on paper some lessons about it, and I'd like to share those with you. I lost my father in August. But how can one misplace a 6'1" inventor, a successful businessman? When I was a child, I had to take 4 steps for one of his when we walked together. A few days after Dad died, I saw 3 deer behind our home. The adult deer was very tall and steered the fawns toward cover. I wondered whether Dad's spirit had entered the tall parent. We used to call him Daddy Longlegs. Now I can't kill those insects when they invade my home. Driving down Crosstown Parkway, I saw a blue heron in the pond. Skinny and towering over the ducks and geese, he resembled my father. Where are you now, Dad? I lift up my eyes and see the stars and the constellations you showed me when I was young. Are you resting on the Big Dipper? I miss you. Hover beside me as I walk, and when I lose my way, help me find the North Star. Thank you.
Thank you all for those beautiful memories and thoughtful insights. I invite all of you to rise in body or spirit for the recitation of El Malei Rachamim. I will sing it in Hebrew first and then invite you to join me in reciting the English translation in your programs. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamse Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina Im Kedoshim Otorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim Et Nishmat Chanarut Bat Chaim Basara Shehalacha Leolama Baal Harachamim Yastireha Baseter Knafav Leolamim Vitzror Bitzror Chachayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nechalata V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one Janet, daughter of Bill and Joan, who has gone into eternity, find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold her close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you, and may she rest in peace. Together we say, Amen. May the love and eternal connection of our souls give us strength as we turn to recite the words hallowed by time. Sanctifying the name of God, we honor the memory of Janet Ruth Heller with the words of Kaddish Yatom, the mourners, Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach kirute bi'amlich malchute. Bechayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Bagala Bisman Kariv Bimru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mevarach Leolam Ulome Amaya. Yitbarach Vishtabach Vitpa'ar Vitromam Vietnase. Vitadar Vitale Vitalal Shemei Dukudusha Brichu. Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata. Tushbechata V'Nechemata. Da'amiran Be'alma Bimru Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Huya Se Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May Janet's memory be a blessing, and may your memories bring you comfort in your mourning. You may be seated. One of the last programs that Janet helped organize was a concert held yesterday at the Ladies Library Association downtown by members of Temple B'nai Israel's volunteer ensemble. The musicians are going to come forward and share a piece titled A Woman of Valor by Sue Horowitz in celebration of Janet's life. Thank you all for joining us in the celebration of Janet's life. We invite you to stay for some schmoozing and reminiscing in our social hall. And if you need the bathrooms, they're in the hallway at the top, right next to the door. Thank you for coming.